All right, I'm hoping everyone's okay with this. And so I'm gonna go ahead, introduce myself first, and then I'm gonna hand it over to our amazing panelists. And then I have some questions to have them answer as well. So let's get started. I'm Dhrithi. I currently lead the Product Buds Fellowship Program, which we just admitted our 30 people into our cohort. We're really excited about that program. Aside from the Product Buds community, I'm also part of another community called Boss Women Collective. I'm a community manager there. And then outside of my crazy outside work stuff, I also work as a business analyst at Amazon. I started about 3 weeks ago, so pretty new to the company. And yeah, I'm really excited to meet some great people today. So I'm gonna go ahead and popcorn it to Vivian to start off our panelist introduction, and then we'll get some questions rolling from there.
Hi, my name is Vivian. I am a university recruiter at Lyft. I've been here almost exactly 3 years and have in my time here, I think I hear some feedback.
Everyone, please mute yourself when you're joining.
Yeah, in my time here, I've done a lot of technical recruiting all over, from SWE to design to science. Oh, sorry, here's some feedback, but yeah. I think somebody muted me. This is my second season doing APM recruiting, and yeah, I'm excited to be here, share more about the interview process or APM program, and to meet all of you.
Great. Let's popcorn it to the next person, Vivian.
Yeah, let's popcorn it to Leona.
Okay, hi everyone. So I'm Leona. I just graduated from Berkeley last August, and I just joined Lyft for the new APM cohort. So I just started 3 days ago, but it's been great right now. I'm happy to help out everyone who has questions about applying to APMs. I know that it's not exactly the most easy thing to do, but yeah, hopefully we can help. Okay, let me pass it on to Kanika.
Cool. Hello, everyone. My name is Kanika. I just graduated from Waterloo this May. And along with Leona, I also just started 3 days ago at Lyft as an APM. So if you guys have any questions about recruiting, the interview process, whether it's Lyft APM recruiting or even, any other APM recruiting, we're here to answer those questions. Yeah, so excited to chat with you guys today. I'm going to popcorn it over to Omkar.
Surprise. Hey everyone, I'm Omkar. I joined Lyft exactly a year ago as an APM. So, very excited to share my last year. Though it was remote, I had a great time. So I'm happy to share kind of all about that experience.
Yeah, thank you so much, panelists. I'm super excited to talk to all of you. I'm gonna get started. Our first question for today is just to understand, what is the Lyft APM program? So what can we expect out of this program? What are some cool things out of this program? And how does this make it different from any other APM programs that some of our people might be applying to?
I can talk generally about, it keeps muting me. I can talk generally about the APM program, and then maybe I'll pass it on to Omkar for more specific examples of what makes the APM program special. So our APM program is an early career program. So it's really targeted at rising college seniors and people within 2 years of graduation who are interested in breaking into product. And so it really helps to accelerate people into the product world, and with the goal of creating the future leaders at Lyft. So as part of that, we have APM start in a rotation for 9 months. And then after their first rotation, they have a second rotation of also 9 months. And then after that 18-month period, they graduate to become product managers at Lyft and leaders at Lyft. And I think one of the things that makes the Lyft APM program really special and unique is really the scope of responsibility and just how much impact you can make on a project. And I always tell people, like, you're not just an APM, you are a product manager. You're a product manager regardless of your level at Lyft, and you really have a lot of visibility in your work and a lot of opportunity to do a lot of cool things. So that's like at a very high level, the APM program, but I think I'll pass it to Omkar if you want to add more color to that general description.
Sure, yeah, I think you captured it very well. I think what I like to sort of describe it as is, the possibly cliched term that Lyft is trying to build the future product leaders. I've actually seen that that's, definitely the case. And so through the program, we can basically try to work in any line of business. And, many people who think about Lyft think it's just a single rideshare product where, a simple look at it, it's like, oh, it's a glorified taxi, but there's actually so much more to it. Even running that, a large scale system with millions of rides per day in rideshare is complex enough while staying efficient. There are so many other things like bikes and scooters, there's all these like rental platforms, as well as things like the autonomous vehicles platform and partnerships there. So there's actually like a lot more than meets the eye. And one thing that I think that sort of differentiates Lyft from some other, similar APM programs is the scope that APMs get. And I can say, personally, I felt like I was thrown into the deep end. I was given, not just a single feature, which is traditionally what's thought of as an L3 or entry level PM scope, but an entire product. And when I was able to sort of prove myself or show that I could take on more, my manager and the director kind of sort of handed over more responsibilities across the team. So there was a time where I was managing maybe like 13, 14 different experiments, starting my own business initiatives that I thought the company should run. There's other APMs who are able to like create entire teams with 30 people of headcount. So there's like a lot of opportunity to gain a ton of scope and grow very quickly, which I think is a function of the company being still fairly small.
Yeah, great insight. Thank you so much for sharing that. My next question is just to understand, is this Lyft APM program open to internationals residing outside the US and Canada? And I think Vivian would be the best person to ask this question to.
Yeah, so I think if you are outside of US, Canada, and Mexico, I think the question to ask yourself is, do you have work authorization? I think it boils down to that. I think a lot of APM programs primarily have are eligible. You're eligible if you are going to school living in the U.S., Canada, Mexico. The reason is because they have students in those countries have work authorization to work, and so when you graduate, they might work on like a TN visa or OPT while they're waiting for like something more permanent, like an H-1B, versus, let's say, for example, you are a student living and working or going to college in Greece or in India or in China or wherever, right? And your only way of getting work authorization is through something like the H-1B, which is a lottery-based system. So it's a gamble whether you're going to get that or not, right? Like Lyft supports candidates and supports our APMs getting H-1B, and will actually file the application for you. But like, let's say you get an offer in October of this year, the lottery is next year in March, and you don't get picked in the lottery. So that means your offer is not, it's not really an offer because you don't have the work authorization. So that's like a large reason why, if you're outside of the US, ask yourself, do you have work authorization ready to work? And if the answer is no, then you would not be eligible.
Great. I think that was a great explanation of this question. Thanks for answering that. We're going to move on. My next question, I think best people to ask would be Kanika and Leona. Since you guys just started and you guys probably recently went through the recruiting season, what is the recruiting process with Lyft APM like? What did you guys do for prepping for this interview? And what was the general program structure for the interviews?
Cool. I can start. So I don't know if the interview process has changed, but last year, basically you apply, you're selected, you get a homework challenge, you work on the homework challenge. Should take about a day or two to kind of complete that. And then after that, you have one round of product design interviews, one round of product execution, and then one round of on-site, which is, again, product design, execution, and behavioral. And then in terms of prepping for it, I think it's a combination of reading certain books like Crack an APM Interview, Decode and Conquer. What I think really helps is actually watching YouTube videos of seeing people do product management interviews and kind of going through what a product interview looks like. And then doing some mock interviews with people. That being said, I think there is something called overprepping, where you end up doing too many mocks and you end up having too many case studies and you sound like a robot in the interview. And I think that's something you want to avoid. Yes, there is a way to answer the case study, and I'd be happy to kind of go into more details on how to prep for a case study specifically, but it's important to learn the structure of a product management interview, but then also bring your own essence to it. How do you think the problem should be solved? What comes to your mind without trying to follow a certain circle's format? And I think that is what really sets you apart. So I would say prep and mocks are the best way to prep for these interviews, but there is something called overprepping. Leona, I don't know if you have an answer to that.
Yep, I think Kanika has done a great job. Like, she explained the whole interview process really well. And yeah, I totally agree. I think the best thing that you can do to prep for the interview is to, read those books that you can read and watch YouTube videos, as well as just get a lot of mocks. But then when you're doing that, just be aware that you need to have your own framework instead of just applying, the same fixed framework to every single question that you get. And I think as you go along and as you have more and more questions in your mock, you kind of have this figure out yourself. So
great, thank you. Omkar, Vivian, do you want to add anything to
that? No, yeah, I think this was captured very well. I would just say, like, be comfortable with each type of question. Some people think that, oh, it's just product sense, or it's just metric stuff that I have to be good on. But just make sure you don't over prep to one of them, because each of those are going to be a different round, and they all have different frameworks or best practices. So just make sure that you don't sort of overfit to like one type of problem.
Yeah, great. Awesome. Thank you so much. We're going to move on to our next question. This is more of just a general question, but what do you all recommend aspiring APMs to keep in mind when they're applying to this program? Specifically, let's talk more about experiences, or let's talk about interviews, or let's talk about how did you all prep for this interview for your Lyft APM program? So what are some things you would keep in mind when you're applying for this program, or what would you say aspiring PMs to keep in mind when they're applying to the Lyft program?
I can kind of chime in. The biggest thing I would keep in mind is, yes, I feel like everyone can do the prep, everyone can read the books, and that's great. I think really understanding what you bring to the table is important. And I think that's where your strength lies, and that will set you apart from other candidates, whether you're data oriented or whether you're really good with working with people. All of those skills are important as a product manager, but I think really understanding your strengths and kind of what you bring will set you apart. So I would kind of take time to really know your resume, your past experiences, and really highlight those in the interview. But yeah, that's kind of what I would focus on the most.
And I think to piggyback, I love what you said, Kanika. I think that also to piggyback off of what you said and sort of like knowing your strengths and what you are good at, I think that being like, you don't have to have done product management internships in the past. I think that your product management like skills can come from a lot of different places. We actually just did a training that Kanika and I think Leona were both in when we were talking about, what do we look for when we are sitting down reading these hundreds of thousands of applications, and something to keep in mind, for everyone on this call, is we're really looking for aptitude and potential over polish. What that means is that you can have PM skills come from many different kinds of experiences. Maybe that means that you were creating a club on campus, right? And you were like leading a group of people to raise a lot of money, and you were putting on a lot of different initiatives, and you were, you know, executing on all these types of events, and you had to like brainstorm like what the goals were, and then you had to like execute on that. Those are PM skills. Like you don't necessarily had to have done like a PM internship to like do those things. And so I think that look at your past experiences where you did those things, and then you can craft your resume to highlight how you did PM-like things in your past experiences that are not necessarily like on its face, very PM-like. And I think that those are the things that we really are looking for and teasing out. And we spend a lot more time like really looking at those applications and then reading your short essay where, you know, you talk about how you, you know, built something and did that with a team. We're really looking for, is this person like acting like a PM in this other situation? And so those are, I think, some of the things that we're really focusing on as a recruiting team to really bring in people from many different kinds of backgrounds.
Yeah, and one thing I also noticed that quite a bit when I was doing screens last year is that a lot of like extremely, you know, talented and very promising candidates, just their resume though should look exactly like the resume they must have turned in for a SWE internship, and that's like not really going to help you stand out. And there's just like small tweaks you probably have to make, you know, based on, you know, what your past internship was. So like, you know, let's say you interned at, you know, let's say you interned at Facebook as a SWE intern. Don't focus on the same bullet points that you would try to impress an engineering recruiter with. Maybe talk about how you, you know, sort of decided the scope of the project, or helped the team make prioritization calls, or, you know, got on the phone with some of the end users, even if they were internal. So those are the sorts of things to highlight, even if your internship wasn't necessarily a product internship or something like that. And you can do that from sort of all sorts of experiences. But yeah, just make sure it's like a standard, like Eng only resume, because that won't really help you, you know, stand out.
Yeah, I think plus 100 to, you know, everyone has said. Yeah, I just want to highlight there's another opportunity that is very special for Lyft, that, you know, we give you short questions for you to explain, you know, what you are doing on top of your resume. And I think that's just a really good opportunity for those, you know, who might not have PM related experience and still want to showcase that you have related skills. So yeah, just take that opportunity and explain what you have done.
Some really great points that were brought up here. Thank you for sharing that. I just wanted to kind of piggyback off of that as well. I think some of the things that we talk about in our fellowship program as well is that you don't necessarily need to have that internship or that PM internship to land this role. There's several ways outside. So you could do case study projects, you could join different orgs in your campus, but also take leadership roles to be able to experience that into a product related role. And just basically put all of your past experiences, even if it's a marketing analytics role, if it's a software engineer role, there's always ways to translate that into more of a PM aspect. So you want to like tweak your resume to make sure you are targeting those PM roles with the right experience and not with experience that kind of translates more into other roles. So you can't, like Omkar said, you can't be sending your software engineering internship roles or the resume that you sent off to those as a product manager, because the skills just don't translate there. You want to talk more about impact. You want to talk more about how can you kind of create an impact within the Lyft APM program. So plus 100, plus 200 to all of the things that were just said right now, because those are some really great points that we iterate within Product Buds and even with our fellowship programs as well. I think I will again jump into the next question. I know Kanika and Leona have only been at Lyft for 3 days, so maybe some great experiences will come out of it, but just want to ask everyone on the panelists here, how's your experience with Lyft been, and just being part of the APM program over the last 3 days or over the last 2 years or over the last several years at Lyft? How has your experience been? How has your onboarding experience been? I think everyone would love to hear more about that.
I guess I can start since I've been the APM for the longest. But yeah, no, I've really loved it so far, and that's sort of why I tried to step up and do more of the recruiting efforts this year, because I just wanted to sort of like proselytize that to the whole world and sort of share that like what a cool program this is. I think my favorite parts have been, the other APMs I've met. We've become very close to the program and can lean on each other quite a bit, not just socially and like, traveling together, but also for helping each other grow and make, better slides, good presentations to deal with situations that come up. So I feel like I've gotten, very close to that community, and also the general mentorship. So as part of the program, you get one rotation manager per rotation, as well as one mentor who's sees you grow throughout those 18 months. And those people have become very close and given me a lot of tips, and are not shy about calling me out when there's areas I can grow, and even like sending me books for areas to grow on. So that mentorship, I think, is like a very strong part of the program that I've come to appreciate too.
Yeah, I can chime in, even though I've only been 3 days at Lyft. But I think just over the last recruiting cycle, like last year when I was talking to Vivian and all the other amazing PMs at Lyft, I just feel that everyone was really supportive, really nice, really easy to talk to. And that partially, drives my decision of like joining Lyft in the end. So yeah, I really think Lyft has a really good culture of just being really supportive and caring for your growth instead of just wanting you to output in your work. So I think that's really important to me.
Yeah, plus 100 to everything Leona said. I think I was telling Vivian this as well. The biggest driving factors of like coming to Lyft was the interview process. And what I love about the interview process the most is that it makes you feel like a human being and not just like an applicant and a candidate. So that's what I like the most. It's very personable. They actually care about you as a person. You're not candidate number 50 or 5,500. You're actually Kanika, and they will like make an effort to ensure that, you're supported throughout the entire interview process. And I think it just makes recruiting easier. And I think it's very reflective of what the company is going to be like. So, I mean, it's been 3 days, having a good time. So can't complain.
That is awesome. Do y'all want to talk a little bit more about your onboarding experience? How is that like being virtual? Since I'm not sure how many people have onboarded virtually here, but I definitely think like it's a big factor to seeing like how companies perform as just general us being employees. But did y'all have any like pros, cons, some great things that you learned about during your onboarding virtual experience?
I think so far onboarding's been pretty good. We met up on Sunday in person before we onboarded together as a class. So that was really nice.
Cool.
And then had a lot of one-on-ones just with people like the other APMs, as well as our own cohort this week. So yes, it is virtual. And I would personally prefer things to be in person just because like I like in-person meetings more. But I think so far it's been going really well. Right now, it's just like the fun laptop setting up stuff, which I think is standard across all companies.
Yeah, I think the experience has been really smooth. Yeah, there are some logistical stuff that you have to set up, but then I think Lyft make an effort to make it fun and interactive when you're doing it. And while you don't have to do it in a group, they kind of let you take your own space and just do it at your own pace. So I think I appreciate that a lot because different people have different speed at going through different stuff. So.
Yeah, great. Thanks for sharing that. We definitely love companies that have very positive onboarding experiences. So thanks for sharing that. My next question is more of just trying to see like what advice that you have for people who are applying to this program or just general aspiring APMs. We don't necessarily are talking about like Lyft APM programs, but I'm sure y'all all have really great tips to give like aspiring product managers. The Product Buds community is filled with aspiring product managers and recent product managers. So what are some tips that you have for aspiring APMs based on your past experience? What are some do's? What are some don'ts that they should be kind of focusing more of their time on? And like, where should they in general be focusing their interest, their study prep for as of right now? I know Kanika mentioned some really great books that they should be studying for, but like, what are some other things that, they should be spending their time on right now for during recruiting season?
And sorry, to clarify, are you talking about people that are applying right now, or aspiring, meaning you had a chance to like change some, like you're 1 year away maybe?
I think we focus on both, just if people are trying to get a head start on applying for APM programs, and also people who are kind of going deep into recruiting season now.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, for people in recruiting season right now, I would say, like, don't get overwhelmed. A lot of people are going through the same thing, and it's, you know, a very stressful process. Yeah, there is always some element of chance to it, so you don't have to, like, you know, take anything personally, but you know, there are a lot of things you can do to kind of make yourself stand out, as we mentioned earlier. Other than that, I think, yeah, just generally, these interviews are not like black boxes. Like, there is a way to sort of crack the code to it, and there are like frameworks you can try to build. So I think a lot of it is just like not being overwhelmed, because there's even at the homework stage, like there is a structure to everything that can make your answer stand out. And so just focusing on that part rather than, you know, stressing about how do I get my foot in the door, all of these things. You know, just like not memorizing, but like internalizing these frameworks and being comfortable answering these questions, you know, practicing with your friends, even like, you know, looking at normal products that you interact with, like Google Maps, and thinking through like, how would I make this better? That sort of, all of those things sort of build product intuition, and will make you, you know, better off in the interview. So yeah, I think really just remembering that there's like, there's like frameworks you can do to sort of answer every type of question, and there's not a crazy element of luck once you're actually, you know, getting the homeworks, things like that. So you can prepare pretty well for that.
Just to kind of add on to that, I feel like a part of it is also being comfortable with rejection. And I think everyone always talks about like wins and getting offers, but no one really talks about all the rejections that, you know, you have to face before getting an offer. And I can say I got so many rejections. I applied to so many different jobs. I got rejected from recruiter screens, final rounds, didn't even get the interview. So it's not just like, I feel like we only see people getting offers. We don't see people getting rejected. So even if you do get rejected, I know it's cheesy, but don't let it slow you down. Like it's fine. Like there's always going to be more opportunities, and there's always going to be more jobs. And the interview does not define whether or not you can be a good product manager. I think that's like the biggest thing, because it's demotivating, you know, like when you get rejected to kind of walk into an interview the next day. So we've all been there. That's one thing I want to say. The second thing is, like Omkar said, there is a framework to these things and you can crack the code. One thing I do want to mention is, I think it helps to start early. Oftentimes people start prepping for these interviews once they get the interview. And I do want to say that the process is very quick. Like once you get the interview and the homework challenge, you're going to have like 2 to 3 weeks to go through all the interviews up until the final round and getting the offer. And you want to start practicing earlier so that it doesn't come off as robotic. It comes off as natural. And I think in order for it to come off naturally, in order for you to be able to think on your feet, I would recommend starting earlier than later. And yeah, don't get demotivated. I think that's like the biggest thing that I want to mention.
Yeah, I think everything that Kanika and Omkar has mentioned are really good. Yeah, just want to say, just emphasize it again, like, yeah, whether or not you get an offer or even get an interview doesn't really mean whether or not you're capable for, you know, doing product related work. So personally myself, when I was applying, other than a lot of big companies, I applied to a lot of startups and small companies. So if you are just really into product, and there are just that many spots in the big tech companies APM programs, right? So like look into other things that you can potentially do that are also, you know, breaking you into the product path. And yeah, so if you're passionate in that, try to find other ways that you can also do related work. And for aspiring PMs, like who are not maybe in the recruiting season right now, I think it's really important for you to like just talk to more people, like talk to more PMs to understand whether this is something they want to do. Because I feel like now it's getting really hype up, like this career path is getting really popular, and a lot of people are getting into it just because, you know, a lot of other people are trying to recruit for it. And I think it's really important to know whether this is right for yourself. Explore more career path if you can. Yeah, don't just dive into it because it's what everyone else is doing. Yeah.
Leona, I really love that point that you made at the end. It's something that I saw Jonathan Javier on this call, and I actually was talking to him recently about this, about like how to find your dream job. And I feel like the work you do first before you start to like study and really dive deep into preparing for interviews is like know yourself and like know like what you are good at and what would actually sustain you, what would you enjoy doing even if you weren't getting paid for it, right? And then like that involves like diving deep into who you are, as well as having those conversations with other people to be like, well, what do you do from 9 to 5? Like, tell me like functionally, what does this look like? Like, what are like the meetings that you have? Like, what are the things you do when you're like working independently? Like, are those things like interesting to you? If you can shadow people, or if you can just like have people break down their day and talk about the problems that they deal with, like really dive deep into like functionally like what it is that product managers do before you decide like I want to like pursue this career, because I think that that's like that will help you in the future, right? Like it will set you on a path of like, this is the path that's right for me, versus like, oh gosh, like I don't like this. And then
Yeah, thank you all for sharing that. That was some great points. I also really love Leona's point about talking to people. Like you want to talk to them more about just understanding what their role is, seeing if PM is even for you. You want to make sure like this is what you want to do, but also just kind of put yourself out there, start talking to more people, start networking with more people, and maybe those people can mock interview to make sure you know you would fit into this role, or you would even just in general be able to crack the PM interview. So start networking with people. I can't emphasize how important it is to network. I know Darsh is a big fan of networking, but I will say it's a very, very important skill to have. I got my job at Amazon just through networking. I didn't even apply with a referral. I just got in because I networked. So you want to make sure you're connecting with the right people, you're connecting with the right managers, and you're talking to the right people as well. So before we move into some questions from our audience, I just want to kind of circle around with everybody in the panelist team, just to see what are some words of motivations you may have for our aspiring product managers on their product journeys. And say if they don't end up getting the APM role that they are looking for, it could be Lyft or it could be any other company, how can they still leverage being a PM, or how can they still learn the product skills that they're looking for in a similar role to be able to transition into the product space?
I think volunteering for projects where you like own the project and you kind of project manage is a good way to exercise your product management skills. I think when we were like recruiting some of our current APMs to help with recruiting, like one of our more senior PMs, Matt, I don't know if you remember him saying this, Omkar, but he was like, okay, when you're like running one of these like APM recruiting work streams, like you're basically a product manager for this like recruiting project, right? So it might not be like, you're not working on a product, right? You're not like working on something that we're gonna like ship out onto the Lyft app, but you are owning a work stream or an initiative, right? You're delegating work to other people. You're setting like goals that you know, and milestones, and then you have like metrics of success, and then you like do the work to execute it. You know, make sure everybody's on the same page. Like these are the things that a product manager does. So even if you're not working in product, I think that there's ways that you can like volunteer to step up to like own large projects, and through that like really build those kinds of transferable skills that will help you when you eventually like make the leap into a product.
Yeah, and I will also say, so you know, words of encouragement. Yeah, I think just generally like keep your head up. Again, like it is, unfortunately, this has become like a fairly stressful world of recruiting, but you are all more than just the offers you end up receiving at the end. And that being said, if you don't end up landing an APM offer, that is definitely not a sign that your like product journey or your product aspirations are over. I practiced, APM recruiting, did mock interviews with two of my best friends in college who were my roommates. Neither of them ended up getting it, even though some of them, went to multiple on-sites, and, but one of them still knew he wanted to be a product manager. So within his, iOS role, he took a lot of initiative to reach out to the PM on the team and sort of shadow him, or he helped sort of define a lot of requirements for his own project, and sort of talked to recruiters as well and asked to shadow that. So there's so many ways that you can still flex that PM muscle. And now he convinced the PM on his team to sort of let him shadow and do a PM rotation. So didn't get into an APM program, knew he wanted to do producty stuff, and found those opportunities. And now he's going to be an L4 faster than I am. So it is definitely not a sign that you should quit if you can't land an APM position.
Great. All right. I think that's all we have here with for me. I was told to also ask you guys, like, what keeps you going with, working as a product manager at Lyft? Like, what are some motivations that you have to be able to work as a product manager? What are some cool things? Like, is it the free food? Is it, we're all virtual right now, but like, is it the people? Is it the work that you get to do? Is it actually being able to see your feature being shipped into the Lyft app? Like, what is it that keeps y'all motivated to be able to work at this company?
I mean, again, it's been 3 days, so I couldn't speak too much. But then I think what got me to joining Lyft and enjoying working till now is that I think people are all really mission driven. We are all trying to make some positive change to the physical world, which I think is pretty amazing, because when you work on purely online products, it's a different experience. And yeah, I think just people are just really great. Received so many warm welcomes and suggestions from my fellow APM cohorts, the previous APM cohorts, recruiters, people around you. They're just really, really nice and just reach out to help you. And I think that's more than I can ask for.
Awesome. Anyone else wants to add to that?
I can kind of talk about, again, it's been 3 days. I can kind of say what keeps me going in like PM. I personally look at product management as like a problem. Like, you get a problem and you get to solve the problem. You have certain resources around you. You work with different team members, different stakeholders, and you pretty much just solve a cool problem together. And that's like, I think, the coolest thing to do at a job for me, because I tried software engineering. I did not like coding behind a screen. It's just not for me. Tried a couple of other things. And I was like, you know what, this seems really cool. And I tried it out and I was like, this is something that I want to continue doing. So I think that kind of spans across different companies and different roles as well. So if you like solving problems, I think product management's for you.
Awesome. Go ahead.
And I'll just add like one last quick thing that keeps me going and makes this job really interesting is that bridge between the software world, where it's easy to sort of abstract everything into software, and the real world implications. So I was on the mapping team initially. One of my projects was like venues, which is where we kind of figure out the optimal spots and recommend those. And there were times where my friends would be requesting a Lyft in a very chaotic situation, and boom, like the venue pops up. I'm like, yeah, that's my product, and made the ride so seamless. Or there's cases where I just launched a product, or my team launched a product last week, and we're seeing a lot of drivers on Reddit posting about it. Some of them saying like very positive things, some of them saying like, look how much I earned this week. And so the fact that you're also a significant source of income for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. And so I think that real world connection always, sort of lights that fire when things get kind of boring or difficult.
Yeah, That's awesome. I think a lot of product managers probably agree with that. Like seeing their product in the real world is what keeps them going, and it's just such a satisfying feeling. So definitely like feel that. Okay, cool. So we are going to move into the question and answer session. We are leaving the last 15 minutes for you all to ask any questions to our panelists. The expectation is that not all panelists will be answering all of the questions, but one or two can answer it based on what your questions are. We want to move through as many questions as we can. So preference will be given to people with their videos on. So we're going to move you to the spotlight when I call your name out, or when I move you to spotlight, and then feel free to unmute yourself, ask your question, and then you can go back to mute while the panelists answer your question. So I will bring up Anna back onto the spotlight. So I just got her here. Hey, Hannah.
A quick note before we start with the Q&A. Vivian is going to share a link specifically for product buds to apply or send their resume for their APM program. So please don't ask any questions around referrals or anything like that. We have a dedicated product buds link, so you can just apply through there. Go ahead, Jyoti.
All right, Anna, so I'll let you go and answer your question. You can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you, Vivi. So hi guys, my question is actually for Vivian specifically, and it goes back to a question that Dorothy asked earlier today. And you've expressed a little bit that you see in terms of applications and experiences that you are seeing more different backgrounds enter culturally. Would you say that's also true for the background in terms of education, the background in terms of experience? Do you see more APMs coming from different fields other than technical per se?
Yeah, that's a great question, Anna. We are making a concerted effort to bring in more APMs from different backgrounds. I think a lot of our APMs traditionally have been from technical backgrounds. I think we see a lot of computer science backgrounds and other engineering type backgrounds. But I think that product management, at least at Lyft, does not require having a CS background or technical background. And so we really want to bring in people with like English majors or film majors, or people who just like have had different life trajectories, because people with different experiences will build better products, or like give different perspectives to build better products. And so I think that, as we're calibrating and training our app readers and our interviewers, it is something that we tell people to be mindful of, is like give these applications like a deeper look, because there is like a traditional looking resume, but we want people our applicant reviewers to really like do more to bring in people who have like I said, like English majors or like biology majors, or majors that you might not see as like typical for product management. Because as we talked about, like during today's talk, like you can develop those skills in a wide variety of experiences. So, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Great. All right, I'll bring the next person on to Spotlight. Before I do, I did want to reiterate what Darsh had mentioned. Vivian will be sending a personalized product buds link for the application that basically says that y'all were in the event today and you will be applying through the product buds community. So please don't ask questions about referrals or any of that stuff. I think it just makes it easier for the team to go through applications when you apply through that link. All right, I'm going to bring Nabila on to the spotlight. Nabila, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, can you guys hear me? Just being sure.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So my question is to like any of the people, actually, like anybody's free to answer. So as I've seen, like most of you guys who are in the panel right now are from an engineering or computer science background, and it's kind of related to the previous question as well. So for someone who is not from a technical background, like I'll give an example for myself. I'm from the life sciences background, like biology, human bio. And I'm like, and I think I love problem solving. So I'm like considering PM as a career. So where would you guys advise someone who has no technical background whatsoever to start from? That's the question. I hope I was clear.
Yeah. So you have no technical background. I think, that doesn't preclude you from being a PM. I think I haven't read the book, so maybe I'm not one to recommend it, but I've heard that Swipe to Unlock is like a pretty good book for people that are non-technical, trying to understand, how a lot of software products and, tech companies products work. So maybe that's something to take a look at. Other than that, I think there's just, there's a lot of courses online kind of explaining, X, Y, Z for a non-technical background. There are a lot of free Coursera type things. So I think there's a lot of material like that, but you can specify, for a non-technical background, and they can explain quite a few things, from APIs to databases to all kinds of stuff. So I would just use a lot of those sorts of online resources so you can talk the talk with engineers when needed.
Yeah, plus one to that. I will add, and basically you do not need to code to be a product manager. I think a lot of people have this misconception that you need to know how to code. Am I good? Okay. That you need to know how to code really well. Is there a lot of feedback?
Yes. Please mute yourself if you're not talking, please. Thanks.
Okay, TLDR, you do not need to know how to code. You just need to know how to understand certain technical concepts. And there's always online resources for that. Honestly, even joining certain clubs on campus, I don't know if you're still in school, but clubs like the Data Science Club or Intro to Design, I think even having some understanding of how products are built will set you apart.
Great, thank you. Yeah, that's the thing. I graduated in 2020 and it was completely life science focused. And now I'm trying to go to a different route right now. And exactly what Kanika said, I think the idea is that people need to learn how to code, and that's what I started off with. So was looking for an answer where the non-technical about non-coding and what other stuff I could be learning.
Great. Thanks, Nabila. We're going to move you off spotlight, and I'm going to invite Michael onto the spotlight. Michael, feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Awesome, thank you. And so my question is kind of around entrepreneurship. One of the things I think that's really cool about the product roles is that you're kind of the closest to being kind of an entrepreneur and building your own product. And one thing I was wondering for people that have been working at Lyft is, what do you feel that Lyft as a company does to kind of facilitate that entrepreneurial and innovative spirit? What are kind of the initiatives to expose you to the cutting edge of technology and to business problems across the company, both kind of within your own product work stream and more broadly?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So there's quite a few things where Lyft, and I've actually been surprised by this, but there's a lot of knowledge share sessions between PMs. So and actually I think Vivian helps host some of these as well, but there's sessions where PMs from one part of the company will come and share quite a bit about what it is they're working on. There'll be large reviews where you can go in no matter what part of the company you're in. There's also courses that are run by data scientists or other engineers to teach PMs about various parts of the company. So there'll be machine learning courses, optimization courses for people that are explicitly, not necessarily versed in those things. So between all of these reviews, knowledge share sessions, and presentations, there's quite a bit where you can sort of understand what the cutting edge or what the most interesting work is across the company. And if you want to move there, you can leverage those sorts of opportunities.
Thank you.
Thanks, Omkar. Thanks, Michael. You move Michael off the spotlight. We have time only for 2 more questions since it is 8:25 and I want to be a little mindful of time right now. So I'm going to invite Kevin and then Iris will go after. Kevin, feel free to unmute and go ahead.
Yeah, hi, thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm Kevin, and I graduated last year in 2020 during the pandemic. And yeah, my question was more specifically for Omkar, as someone who's been at Lyft for about a year now. How is being an associate product manager for a product, for the product you're in charge, like you said, you were in charge of, how has it been in terms of like high level goals, like setting strategy and vision and coordinating with other teams versus like lower level and more granular tasks like writing out specs for engineers or planning sprints or thinking more about the exact user flow or experience for the certain product you're working on?
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the coolest parts about the rotational program is that you can rotate between products that are in 2 different stages. So in my first rotation, I was able to pick up some products that were sort of in that stage where you talked about, where most of it has been built, but they're kind of trying to get across the finish line in terms of delivery. So there's a few product specs left to write, some some execution work to be done to prioritize which features have to be actually shipped. But then there's also opportunities where you can set the whole whole initiative level vision. So this goes all the way from figuring out, you're given a very abstract problem, like how can we make complex pickups easier? And you work with the data scientists on figuring out what are the 10 different things that make it hard, doing a ton of UX research, data science work. Then you sort of boil this down into key initiatives, priorities, and then you set a vision for it. And then once people are signed onto that vision, you can start to build specific projects around it. And then you get to work on prioritizing the projects. Then you write a product spec. Then you work with the engineers to write a tech spec, ship that, run an experiment. So that you kind of get exposure to all sorts of that life cycle based on what projects you're on. And then the project I'm on now was 80% built out, but it's a very execution and launch focused project. So here I'm writing fewer product specs, but I'm doing a lot more work on pulling in feedback that we're getting from the real world to prioritize new features or bug fixes. So there's you can kind of do everything based on what type of product you join, and based on what you want to learn, you can choose to join that stage of product. So yeah, I guess everything you described and then a little more is all possible here. And you get a full PM's level scope to do it. I never felt micromanaged or someone was looking over my shoulder for these sorts of things.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a great answer and went into a lot of detail about what it's like to be an APM. So appreciate it.
Thanks, Kevin. I will move Iris now to the spotlight, and yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you everyone for taking the time to chat with us. I have 2 questions. First one for Vivian. I'm curious, are international students studying in Canada allowed to apply? Can they still get interviews? And second question for all the panelists, I'm curious, what tips do you have for the take-home assignments? Thank you.
To answer the Canada question first, yes. Kanika is actually from Canada and went to University of Waterloo, and she's here now in San Francisco. We have a lot of Canadian new grads as well. So I think for generally that case, you would be working on a TN visa while you are, waiting for H-1B. So if that applies to you, then yes, you would. Yeah.
Actually, to add on to that, I think TN visa is only available for Canadian citizens. I'm talking about international students from Canada. So yeah.
Got it. So that's something that you would work with the recruiter, so myself or the immigration team, to figure out if there's other routes for work authorization. Because if it's a case where you would have to, if your only route would be H-1B, which is again lottery based, so it's a gamble as to whether you'd get it. If that's the only way before you even start, then I think that it would be difficult. So that's something that's and everybody has their own immigration situation. So that's something that we would work with you on after you've applied to see what other routes there are.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, and then can we, the last question about the take-home assessment, I think I'll give one person a chance and then we'll wrap up our question and answer session.
Yeah, I can answer that pretty quickly. I think take your time to think about it before you start writing it. I think like a lot of people who are doing it start rushing into like, try to format a really good answer at the very start. But usually I think the good answers came out from a lot of, thinking and consideration before you actually start writing it. So, take your time to brainstorm, get to know the industry, get to know what, companies are actually doing right now before you start writing an answer. And yeah, I think just put some thoughts and use your credence in just doing the assignment. I think it should be fine.
I will add something. The goal of the take-home assignment is not for you to come up with the best idea or for you to have like the absolute best, next game changer product for Lyft. It's more so to test your skills around how you work with data, or how do you work with people? How do you factor in all those decisions, or how do you prioritize, let's say, a certain feature? So as long as you kind of go through and are very systematic in your thought process, that's what they want to see. They want to see your thought process. They want to see why you decided X over Y. And as long as you kind of like verbalize that and kind of walk through that, you're fine. Don't focus on finding like the next best idea possible. My idea was pretty bad, not gonna lie, but I would say just focus on like the writing process more.
Awesome. Thanks, Iris. And thanks to our panelists again for such a great session. If you really enjoyed the session, please react either in the chat or using an emoji. We're all like super appreciative of having our panelists join here today. For the last question, or not really a question, just housekeeping stuff. I know Vivian, you had mentioned in the chat that you'd be dropping a link. People just want to know, if the link has been dropped, and I'll just give you some time to talk about it. The other question to that is, what should they do if they've already applied to the program? I think you're on mute.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yep.
So I just dropped the link. It's in there. It's special application to apply. We'll be able to track that you attended the Product Buds event. If you already applied, please, I beg you, please do not apply again, because if you apply again, it will create a duplicate in the system. It will create a lot of work on our end. And then we try to go in and like delete duplicates. So we may accidentally delete your file completely if you apply again. So please do not apply again if you've already submitted an application. We just need your application from like one source, right? Like whether it's this or whether you applied during like, when the application opened. But if you have not applied, you can use this link.
Awesome. Well, everyone heard that. The link has been dropped. I will send in another link just for everyone to get that. Feel free to hop off the call. The session is now done. I'm sorry if we couldn't get to
one small thing before the session is done. We also have another session tomorrow. So if you're interested in other APM programs, feel free to check that out as well.
Yeah, and feel free to check out Product Buds on our website or our Slack group. We have a big community, especially if you're trying to interview prep. We have a lot of people who are on the same boat as you, so feel free to use the resource as much as you can. And yeah, feel free to hop off. Thank you so much to our Lyft panelists for such a great session. We really appreciate it, and we're hoping that we can keep this Lyft Product Buds momentum going for a long time. But thank you.
Thank you so much.